All right, now I'd like to give you an opportunity to dispel some of these myths and over-exaggerations about the Libertarian Party.
Sure, go ahead.
Gold standard.
Well, you know, like most libertarians, I support a return to gold standard. I certainly support looking at it as a way to hedge inflation. I think inflation is out of control in this country right now. I think we're being lied to by the Federal Reserve. They tell us there isn't a lot of inflation. Well, there is. Go to the grocery store, tell me there's no inflation. Fill up your car and tell me there's no inflation. So I think the Federal Reserve is really misleading us. Either that or they're just out of touch in their ivory towers. I'm a small businessman, and I can tell you I'm the canary in the coal mine. My business is down 25–30% versus a year ago. I was sitting on the airplane with a doctor, as I just mentioned at the beginning of this interview, and he said across the United States of America, plastic surgeons are down 35%. Most of my friends are small businessmen. They're all down 30%. Everyone's got the same number. They're all down 30%. You know what I call that? Not a recession, a depression. That's how bad things are. And yet no one's acknowledging it in the government because the Federal Reserve, these guys live in a different world. They're Rockefellers and they're big shots with billions of dollars and they're 12 generations later with fancy Harvard degrees. I know what's going on Main Street. Forget about Wall Street. We are in a depression. And so my point is the Federal Reserve has not helped us. It's hurt us. It's been a part of the whole reason we're here today. And so, you know, unlike the Ron Paul crew who screams out to the world, we got to end the Federal Reserve, end the Federal Reserve, and the average voter doesn't even understand what they're talking about. I would just say it's time to look at the role of the Federal Reserve and maybe rein in its power. And then we'll see where we go from there. But one thing's for sure, it was supposed to have it was formed for one reason only, to stop inflation. That's the reason the Federal Reserve is on this earth. That's why it was there. Now we're giving it much bigger roles, and it's bailing out Bear Stearns and Wall Street, spending trillions of dollars of taxpayer money. It's bailing out Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. I don't think that's the role it was intended for. I say rein it in and give it less power, not more power. It's doing a pretty lousy job.
What about gun laws? You know, that people walk around with machine guns, or how's the...
Well...
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I
know exactly what you're saying.
So many people get scared when they hear...
Yeah, I know. I think that's what scares people a little bit about sometimes the Libertarian Party. This is the only thing I'll say about guns. I'm a guy who believes in the Second Amendment. I believe we have a right to keep and bear arms. I'm a Jewish American, and my relatives were all murdered in Nazi Germany. And the first thing that Hitler did before he murdered them is he took their guns away. In 1938, Hitler passed a law that said no Jew could own a firearm. That was it. From that point on, they were helpless and they were murdered. And that'll never happen to me or anybody I know. And that's because I carry. So I believe in guns. That doesn't mean I believe people who have mental illness should carry guns. Doesn't mean I believe people with a criminal record should carry guns. It doesn't mean there aren't some reasonable limits on guns, but the reasonable limit was certainly not the law in Washington, D.C. Basically what that law was racism. That was saying, hey, you live in a black town, we don't feel you're responsible enough to carry a gun. You live in a town where the crime rate is through the roof, we're not going to allow you to defend yourself in your own store, maybe because they're black, and maybe that's the reason, maybe someone intended that to be racist. I don't know, but it sure appears that way to me. Everyone has a right to carry a gun. Black, brown, yellow, green, I don't care what they are, you have a right in America to carry a gun as long as you don't have a criminal record or mental illness.
You really say it like it is.
Exactly. Well, hey, speaking from experience, you know, it brings it home when I say to audiences I'm Jewish and my relatives were murdered before, you know, they took the guns away first, and that was what allowed Hitler to round them up and kill them. People get it. The light bulb goes off all of a sudden. No one's ever explained it that way.
Now, I kind of want to touch on the most touchy issue of drugs, but I don't want to go into the whole legalization thing other than I just want to say that here in California we passed Prop 215 years ago saying that we, people of California, support the use of medical marijuana.
Right, that's my good buddy Steve Cubby. Him and I are very good friends. Steve was instrumental. He was the leader that passed the whole thing, and I consider Steve like a brother. And, you know, I think it's easy to sell medical marijuana all over the country. I think the answer, though, isn't that drugs should be legalized or marijuana should be legalized. The answer is the states' rights issue. Every state and the citizens of that state have a right to weigh in without the federal government telling them what to do with an iron boot on their neck. And the citizens of California made their decision. Legalize medical marijuana. And the next decision, quite naturally, I believe, will be to decriminalize marijuana in general. California will do that. It's none of the federal government's business to be involved in any way, shape, or form. As vice president and with my running mate Bob Barr as president, we'd make sure it's decided on the state level. You'd all be free to make your own decisions in each state. Just like gay marriage, same thing. California may legalize it, Vermont may legalize it, Massachusetts may legalize it, and then, you know, a state like Alabama, which is much more conservative, Bible Belt, would probably never legalize gay marriage. And I say that's the way the Founding Fathers intended. Let each citizen of each state make his own vote count. That's the answer.
I'd like to close by saying, what about people that say, you know what, I like what you're saying, but I don't know what to do. I'm not sure.
Is it a wasted vote? You wanted to be polite and not say that. But that's the truth. Everybody thinks it's a wasted vote. Here's my answer. If you look at studies right now, polls right now, 80% of the American people believe that we're going in the wrong direction as a country. 80% or more. Less than 20% like our current president, George Bush. 9% like our current Congress, which is a Democratic Congress. So if you've been voting Republican or Democrat for the last 50 years, and you've voted for people that got us to the point where 80% of you think we're headed in the wrong direction, don't you think maybe you've been wasting your vote all these years? Don't you think maybe the wasted vote is voting for the same people? It's Groundhog Day. You keep making the same decisions, voting Republican and Democrat, assuming things will change, and you wake up every day after the election, you find out nothing's ever going to change. If you want change, you have to be bold enough to vote for change. And this is how you vote for change. My parents were two of the original founders of the New York State Conservative Party. And just like libertarians on a national level, on the local New York level, they lost and lost and lost, and everybody said it's a wasted vote. And finally they got the right candidate, James Buckley. And they woke up the day after Election Day and they found out, even my parents couldn't believe it, he was elected United States Senator.
The only third-party senator.
That's it.
That's right.
That's right. In modern political history, the only third-party senator, James Buckley,
NY-C.
elected as a third-party senator. So the point is, it can happen with the right candidate at the right place and the right time. I'd like to thank Wayne Root and Bob Barr. Right candidates, right place, right time.
Thanks a lot, Wayne,
Thanks,
for talking to us here at the Orange Juice blog.
Thank you. My pleasure.